one of the things about MGM that I think is fascinating is the progress that you've made in the equality space, diversity and inclusion. Can you talk to us about that journey that you've been on? You've been on CEO for 10 years and with the company for 20. What was it like when you got there, and what kind of progress have you made?
I lived here for 14 years in New York. I worked on Wall Street, and so did my wife. My wife is 5 years younger than I am and smarter and
usually the case.
Incredibly beautiful. And she ended up being an II analyst, ranked #1 in her space, ran global consumer products research for Merrill Lynch, made a bucket full of money. I was a research director and an II analyst at Deutsche Bank. And for 14 years, I saw how much harder my wife had to work because she's a woman and in a good old boy network of Wall Street. And so 20 years ago, we packed up our bags, went to Las Vegas, and we said, honey, we're getting out of Wall Street. We're going to go to Las Vegas. And what do we find? A bigger good old boy network. It's even worse. And so it's been a 20-year journey of trying to effectuate change in a company that I was a part of, that I love. And once I became the CEO 10 years ago, I was able to make more meaningful change, and that's the journey that we've been on.
Let's talk about the personal side a little bit, because when you were in New York, you were an equity researcher at Deutsche Bank, right?
I was.
Which I find fascinating, because then you moved to Vegas and entered a corporate life. What was the difference between Wall Street then and sort of the corporate side when you got under the hood?
Well, I've defined myself by my work ethic and athletics. I was a pretty good college athlete, and so the recruiting pitch to me was, Jim, you could stay on the sidelines and report on action on the field, as I had been doing for so long, or you can get on the field. And that resonated with me. Then I learned how much less I was going to make when I took the job, which was painful. But they gave me a bunch of stock, and it worked out for well, and then it worked out very poorly. And then it worked out really well, and then the Great Recession hit, and it worked out very poorly. And it's working out well again right now.
It's eating back up, yeah.
So it was going from being on the sidelines, reporting on the action, not really knowing much about how companies are run, and frankly, as an analyst, you're a free agent. And I went from running my own business, basically within a large organization, to being part of thousands of employees. And I got a sense that I was part of a bigger organization, and I needed to have more responsibility and more empathy and more understanding for people, which is not a trait that Wall Street really engenders. Mm-hmm. And so I went from being very self-centered and selfish, working here, to somebody that needed to change the way I viewed myself and interacted with other people. And it's taken me 20 years to get there.
So talk to me about the corporate culture that you inherited when you got there.
Yeah.
And what did it look like, that good old boy network? Yeah. And how did you start to change it?
So I was hired by a legendary investor, Mr. Kirk Kerkorian, and who only died a couple years ago, by the way. He was 98 years old, and American hero. He's a man who flew
98's
bombers.
Pretty good.
Yeah. In World War II.
So bombers, and then MGM.
Yeah, and he owned a studio, and he dated starlets, and he was quite a guy. He knew Howard Hughes and Bugsy Siegel, and colorful character. You can read about him. But I went into an organization that was a very property-centric. The properties ran the show. Corporate was a necessary evil. So HR, IT, finance, those are just support services for properties. And the properties were run by very powerful men, all men, when I joined the company and joined the industry. And so since 2001, we started a diversity program in 2000. We really started moving the needle in terms of, rapidly promoting women into large positions. And we became the first company to put women as presidents of our properties. And so today, about a third of our properties are run by women. But it was a very property-centric, male-dominated, hugely incestuous industry of nepotism that I joined. There was no sense of paid parity between men and women. There was no even understanding of transparency of how people were paid. And so it's taken us about 10 years, but now we have an architecture in place where I have 80,000 employees now. 68% of my employees are minorities. 53% are women. 44% of my managers and above are women. We rank ourselves every month, every quarter. We put out an annual report every year. We hold ourselves accountable to progress we've made and gaps where we know we need to improve. But it all comes down to data. You have to understand where you are, and you have to be not only revolutionary but evolutionary. And what I mean by that is that you got to promote people, but in some cases you can't wait. And so we are actively recruiting outside of our industry and have done so successfully, which is why we're much different dynamic than the rest of our companies in our industry.
And we've had a couple charts on the screen. One of them shows how much you've been disclosing as part of the Bloomberg Gender Quality Index. And in the last reporting period available, you're basically in line with everyone, just showing how much progress you've really made. So those are amazing accomplishments to really take something that was not even a priority and prioritize it and see that. What do you hear from customers and investors about that progress?
I don't hear enough.
Why?
Investors don't care enough yet. They say they do, but they really don't. They talk a good game, but they don't invest with their integrity as a forefront. And I think there's a huge problem there, and I find it very hypocritical that investors talk about wanting companies with a good conscience, but they're really looking for companies that are going to make them a lot of money in the stock. And so we can show that, and there's a lot of data that shows that companies with a strong culture actually does better and our retention rates are better than our peers. People like working for our company, and I'm in a hospitality business, so if people feel good about where they work and they feel included and they feel safe and they feel comfortable, then they're going to exude that positive feeling toward their customers, and that's what I'm in. So I know it works, but we don't see enough of that connection with investors. The things that we do at our company, for example, providing healthier food options. I serve 58,000 meals a day to my employees. And too often we were giving them processed foods and foods that we thought they wanted. And yet we've changed that profoundly over the last 5 or 6 years. Our employees like it, but investors could give a lick. In terms of healthcare, we've created our own employee direct healthcare network. So I have about 40 doctors that are dedicated to my employees. We provide full panels of patients to these doctors, but we hold them accountable. We're in their offices once a week. We check their scripts, if they're over-scripting, under-screening, over-screening, and the doctors make more money, but we're getting better outcomes from our patients. Right. So there are a lot of things that we do. I don't think investors are really, putting their money where their mouth is. On the customer side, it's a mixed bag. Our corporate customers, people that are booking conventions with us, absolutely care about a company's core values. So the fact that we built the largest green project in North America. One project I built got 6 golds from the U.S. Green Building Council. That is the largest, even to this day, larger than the building you're in right now, green project. By the way, same architect, Caesar Pelli, built built Aria and designed this building.
I can bring up our London building if you like.
Okay.
we might have you there.
You might beat me in London, but in the United States, I own America. But you know, corporate clients care about that. Green projects. The largest solar array on a rooftop we built. We're going to be 90% off the grid with sustainable power. This massive array we're building outside of Las Vegas right now. Corporate clients care. The retail customer does not yet. I think it'll get there. We're going to do it anyway because that's what leaders do. But I think it's a work in progress.
So what I like about that is that the progress that you've made, like this is not ending, right? And these are, even if you're not hearing it from constituents yet, you're going to do it anyway.
Right.
But what are the challenges going forward that you don't think are being talked about enough yet?
Well, we have a business model that is a very strong financial model. My margins are over 30%. We throw off a lot of cash. We're a very profitable organization. So we have the ability, the will, and the financial ability to make investments that other companies are not going to make. Whether it's building solar arrays or whether it's changing the way we do business from a power perspective, because there aren't enough incentives to incent companies to do it. The payback on a lot of what I do is not within the time frame that most companies are willing to invest. I'm kind of lucky because I'm the CEO of the company, but I'm also the chairman, so I talk to myself a lot. A lot of CEOs have to talk to somebody else and report to a board.
It's a lot easier when you just internalize it.
It's complicated. But so one is, I think a barrier is, number one, the barrier is board of directors. In my company, 4 out of my 12 board members are female.
Right.
One of my board member was a Secretary of Labor, Alexis Herman. Another one, Rose McKinney-James, is a green energy expert in the United States. I have subject matter experts in the areas of healthcare, of labor, of sustainability, and a board helps me drive change. That's one barrier. Most companies have lousy boards. They're good old boy boards, and that's got to change. The second barrier is there aren't enough incentives for companies to do the right things. Some of them want to do it, but they're just not there. The third is there isn't a big enough stick for companies that don't do the right things, because investors are not doing what they say they want to do. Just look at my industry. MGM Resorts, I think we're the best company, but we trade at a lower multiple than Wynn Resorts and Las Vegas Sands. Figure that one out. Investors are not differentiating between, the culture that we've developed and the cultures of other companies in our industry, or if they are, they're not weighting it the same as how much money you're making in Macau. So I think it's a combination of some things. And the final point I would make on a barrier is it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're not willing to hire people from outside your industry, not willing to bring people in that have disparate points of view, that are willing to challenge management, if you are living in echo chambers like a lot of CEOs do, then you're not going to change. You're not going to make any changes, and that's a big barrier.
Okay, so I want to talk about something that I know everyone here is going to love, which is love.
Love.
Eternal question.
Yes.
What is love? And I'll bring it back. You guys did this amazing collaboration with an album that just came out called Universal Love.
Right.
And the idea was to take classic love songs.
Ever since music was invented, there have been songs about love,
Classic love songs.
but mostly just one kind of love. Love between a man and a woman.
You've got Bob Dylan on here.
You go to a wedding and it's always a he
St.
singing about a
Vincent on
she,
here.
or a she
And
singing
they're all
about a
doing
he.
covers of
Kesha?
Why is
I think
that?
Kesha played when we were coming out.
Definitions of love and marriage are
Which is
changing.
incredible.
Maybe it's time
and
the
you're in
songs
business of
do
love
too.
Because you're in Las Vegas. So
Introducing
How did this
Universal
come
Love,
about?
Wedding Songs Reimagined. A project by MGM Resorts. After all, Las Vegas is the wedding capital of the world. 6 iconic artists, 6 reimagined wedding songs, featuring Bob Dylan, Kesha, St. Vincent, Benjamin Gibbard, Kelly Okereke, and me, Valerie June.
We feel that's a responsibility of our
Universal Love,
enjoy doing
an
it,
album
and
that
we
changes the
think
idea of what a love song can be.
Bathroom bills in Mississippi were the first company to come out and say this is absolutely wrong to discriminate. That was a tough stand for somebody to make in the Bible Belt down in Mississippi, and we didn't care. And we've done this all around the world and around the country. We have a great partner in McCann Advertising. They're sitting in the second row over here. And
When you do collaborations like this, you get seating priorities.
Yeah, I guess. And we sat around a couple years ago and said, how do we really embrace a public way, create a public good for some of the core values that we have as a company. And we came up with the idea of trying to reach out to some of the artists of our generation to do this kind of collaboration, because it occurred to us that no one had done this before. And when we got Bob Dylan, everything kind of fell into place. And
I would think that would happen.
Yeah, and he embraced it. So it's a beautiful album. It's a short album. I think we're going to do another one. I want to do another one. Yeah, and that's breaking news, by the way.
Have you met my friends at McCann?
Yeah, and because we've had other artists reach out, and we are an entertainment company. So we said to ourselves, MGM, we're one of the largest entertainment companies in the United States. We sold over 7 million tickets to our theatrical events last year. We own not one but 3 arenas: the T-Mobile, MGM, Mandalay. We have 38 theaters. We have properties all around the world. Yeah. We have sports teams. We have a women's sports team, a WNBA team. The Las Vegas Aces, follow the Aces this year. They just beat up on the Chinese national team a couple days ago.
Because you own North America.
And we own North America, and they're in our house, and we defend our house. So Asia Wilson, our #1 draft pick, just scored 20 on the Chinese a couple nights ago. But we felt like we could use our power of entertainment, our distribution, and our ideas of entertainment for an important social message, and McCann was a great partner, and that's how it happened.
So which track is your favorite?
Bob Dylan.
Bob Dylan. And what have you heard from the LGBTQ community, especially in Vegas, since this came out?
Very heartwarming. We are a wedding capital too. A very large. You'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be, how many weddings we do. Annually, we do over 100,000 weddings.
That's you,
just our company. And so every property, different chapels, different events, and so it's been very heartwarming.
And now you have the soundtrack.
We got a very good soundtrack. So we've gotten very good feedback from our nonprofit partners and our customers. I mean, and these are incremental steps. I don't have any illusions that we can shift the narrative from being a divisive community to a completely inclusive community overnight. But you have to make steps. You can't be afraid to make steps, and you can't get discouraged because as a civilization here in the U.S., at least, certainly, we seem to be making a couple steps forward and then a couple steps back, and sometimes these issues seem too big and you just kind of want to give up sometimes. But that's not what leaders do. That's what leaders have always, had the resolve to continue to move on, and I feel that's why I'm here. I was, not to get too religious on this, my father was in the seminary for 3 years, Jesuit. Luckily for me and my siblings, he bailed. But, I do believe that I'm in this job for a reason. I do believe that I went from Las Vegas to here to speak at this first conference for a reason. I do believe that I'm in a position, even though I grew up in Fairfield, Connecticut, where out of a school of 1,600 kids in high school, we had like 50 black kids. I grew up in a very white, middle-class environment where, as a Catholic, I couldn't play at a country club because they didn't let Catholics in at that time, which is why I hate golf. But one of many reasons. And now I'm in Las Vegas, and I think I can make some change, and I like doing it. It makes me feel good.
I think that's what we call a mic drop. Jim Murren, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.